The engine was already running when she reached for the door handle, but she suddenly stopped, looked at me with tears in her eyes, and whispered, "Let's take one more loop, please." I didn't understand why. It was almost midnight, the streets were empty, and I had promised her son I would get her home safely. But something in her voice made me put the car into gear again. I had no idea that those extra 10 minutes would reveal a secret she had been carrying for years, and change the way I understood my best friend forever. Before we continue, if you enjoy stories about compassion, second chances, family, and unexpected moments that change lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of compassion and second chances. My name is Daniel, and for most of my life, my best friend Ethan had been the person I could call at any hour. We had grown up 3 houses apart, played on the same school team, studied for exams together, and somehow survived every awkward stage of growing up side by side. His mother, Claire, had always been part of that picture. She was the kind of mother who remembered everyone's birthday, kept extra food in the refrigerator for unexpected guests, and somehow knew when something was wrong even before anyone said a word. That evening, Ethan called me because he was stuck at work and couldn't pick his mother up from a small family gathering across town. He asked if I could drive her home. It sounded simple enough. I agreed immediately. When I arrived, Claire was standing alone beneath a street lamp, holding a small handbag against her chest. She smiled when she saw me, but it wasn't her usual smile. There was something tired behind it. The drive began quietly. Rain had fallen earlier, leaving the roads shining beneath the streetlights. Claire looked through the window while soft music played in the background. I tried making small conversation, asking how the gathering had gone, but she gave short answers. Then, as we approached her neighborhood, she suddenly asked me to slow down. I glanced at her and noticed that she was looking toward an old street we had just passed. She seemed frozen for a moment. Then she quietly said that she hadn't been down that road in years. I asked if she wanted me to turn around. She hesitated before saying yes. We drove slowly through the neighborhood. The houses were older there, with narrow sidewalks and large trees arching over the road. Claire kept looking out the window as if every corner carried a memory. Finally, she pointed toward a small blue house. The paint was faded, and the porch light was broken, but she stared at it for a long time. She told me that was where she and Ethan had lived when he was little. I had heard stories about their old home, but never like this. Claire explained that those years had been difficult. Ethan's father had left when Ethan was very young, and she had worked multiple jobs to keep them afloat. There were nights when she had come home exhausted, pretending everything was fine because she didn't want her son to worry. Then she said something that made me realize why she had asked for the detour. She had been afraid that Ethan remembered those years differently. Claire explained that when Ethan was a child, she had promised him that someday they would have a better home, a safer life, and enough money that he would never have to worry about the things she worried about. She had kept working, saving, and sacrificing. Eventually, she managed to move them into the house where Ethan lived now. But somewhere along the way, she had started believing that her son didn't need her anymore. She told me that Ethan had become busy with work, responsibilities, and his own future. She wasn't angry with him. She was proud of him. But lately, she had begun feeling like a guest in the life she had spent years building for him. I didn't know what to say. Then she admitted something else. That night at the family gathering, everyone had been talking about the future. Ethan's career. His plans. His apartment. His ambitions. Everyone seemed excited, but Claire had quietly wondered where she fit into that future. She looked down at her hands and said that sometimes parents spend so many years preparing their children to leave that they forget to prepare themselves for the silence afterward. That sentence stayed with me. We continued driving until we reached a small park. Claire asked me to stop for a moment. She didn't get out. Instead, she looked toward the empty playground and smiled faintly. She said Ethan used to come there every evening. When he was little, he would run ahead of her, climb everything he could find, and then turn around to make sure she was still watching. She remembered one particular night when he had fallen and scraped his knee. She had carried him home while he cried against her shoulder. She laughed softly and said that he had stopped crying before they reached the house because he was worried she would be upset. Then her smile disappeared. She whispered that she sometimes wished she could go back to those ordinary evenings, not because life was better then, but because she hadn't yet realized how quickly childhood disappears. I understood then that this wasn't about taking a longer route home. She was trying to say goodbye to a version of her life. We finally arrived outside her house. I put the car in park. Claire thanked me and reached for the handle, but before opening the door, she stopped. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered those words, "Let's take one more loop, please." So I drove. We passed the old neighborhood again. We passed the park. We passed the blue house. This time Claire wasn't crying. She was looking out the window with a peaceful expression, as though she was finally allowing herself to remember without feeling guilty. After a few minutes, she asked me to take her home. When we arrived, she thanked me again and stepped out of the car. But before closing the door, she turned back and told me something I would never forget. She said that sometimes the greatest kindness isn't fixing someone's problem. Sometimes it's simply giving them enough time to say what they've been unable to say. The next morning, I called Ethan. I didn't tell him everything Claire had shared. Some things belonged to her. Instead, I told him that his mother missed spending time with him. There was a long silence. Then Ethan admitted that he had been so focused on building a future that he had stopped noticing the person who had helped him reach it. That weekend, he canceled his plans and took his mother out for breakfast. Then they went for a drive. A week later, Ethan called me and thanked me. He said he and his mother had started a new tradition. Every Sunday evening, they went for a drive with no destination. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they listened to music. Sometimes they simply watched the world pass by. Nothing dramatic had happened. No miracle had occurred. But something important had changed. Claire no longer felt forgotten, and Ethan had finally realized that growing up didn't mean leaving the people who loved you behind. Years later, Ethan told me that those Sunday drives became some of his favorite memories with his mother. He said he wished he had started them sooner. And I often think about that rainy night when Claire asked me to take one more loop. Maybe she wasn't asking for another drive. Maybe she was asking for another chance to be heard. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may need this reminder, and leave a comment. Sometimes one small act of kindness can become the moment someone remembers that they still matter. And before we end, comment one more loop if you believe we should make more time for the people we love before life gets too busy. Because sometimes the people sitting beside us aren't asking for money, answers, or miracles. Sometimes they just want us to slow down, stay a little longer, and let them know they haven't been forgotten.